Hey YouTube, it's me TurkishD.Lite, and I'm going to be talking to you about my opinion on the camera system and a few points that a lot of people have made, maybe even a few that some people haven't made. So first of all, what is the new camera system? Well, first of all, it comes in many parts. I'm going to first of all talk about the things I like, which yes, there are a couple of things that I do like and a couple of things I don't like. I'll be showing you this off with the Carnotaurus. So we look right now with the Carnotaurus, as you can see, I can get a perfect field of view behind me. I can just rotate like this very quickly. The reason why is very simple. If I'm fighting against things that I can confidently kill with a Carno and not have to really ambush properly, like say for example that there's a group of raptors, I don't really need to worry about what is directly in front of me. Furthermore, if there was something walking in front of me in this position here, and this position here, and these positions on the side, I have good enough hearing with my surround sound where I can hear if something's running towards me and then just quickly flick back. But most of all, what I'm worried about are the things going in behind me. Now you can see my head is of course being tracked and you're looking left or right. So the change that I do like is an idea of you cannot look directly behind you. But the devs have said that when you're running, you can look directly behind you, which I think is also a bit silly to only add it when you're standing still, because what you do is that you just walk around during combat and be able to look directly behind you. What I would have instead have preferred, and what I thought they were going for, is a 180-degree circle to your right and to your left. So say for example, I want to look behind me, looking right, I'd go 180 degrees, and the camera would stop there. Right? Obviously it doesn't, I can keep going, but the idea is that the camera would lock there. I wouldn't be able to go any further that way. For me to be able to look here, I would have to turn my camera back to the start, and then turn this way, and it would lock there. So you can see each time it's locking in the middle there. You can see that if you focus on, actually if I just use this tree there, that white tree in the far right corner of the map of the Carno, I'm pretty much facing directly in front of it. I can see it there. I go around, I can see it there. That's where the camera lock things would just be about. Or maybe like, you know, a bit in there, a bit in there. Right? I wouldn't mind a system like that. The reason is because of head tracking. I like changes to the game that, how do I explain? I like changes to the game that improve the ability for good players to do things, but don't directly make the game just unbearable for bad players. So to give an example, let's just take stamina, for example. So if you keep running with your stamina, it used to be 75%, it's now 60%. You drop below 60%, you cannot trot and regen stam, as you can see here. So if I just charge, for example, so I'm doing this Arcana for a couple of reasons. You'll see why later. So I'm going to charge until I hit about 60%, which should be coming up pretty soon. Come on. Michelle. That should be about 60%. 62. So that was pretty close. So I'd run a bit more. That should now be 59. Oh my goodness. I keep forgetting that they buffed everything stam again. So my old timings for stuff are off 60%, right? So if I run a little bit more, I now cannot trot and regain my stam. Now, for two good players fighting against each other, it's just quite a nice system, you see, because it means that both players have an understanding of their opponent's stamina. They can kind of stamina manage their own stamina without having to worry about their opponent, and then see how their opponent is trying to regen stamina. So, for example, if we're fighting a Carno and we see the Carno doing this, we know that he's dropped below 60%. He's just standing still. He could not. At the same time, though, if the Carno does stand still against a group of raptors, we are unsure if he is playing defensive or if he is trying to regen a stam. However, for two bad players of this game, the stamina system doesn't matter. If both players just run themselves out of stamina, their fight is basically the exact same as it would have been without the stamina system. Which is why I don't really mind it, right? But for traveling around the map, obviously, yeah, you blow out all your stamina, you don't have to rest. But you'd assume players would be doing something similar to that anyways. And never mind the fact that we have better food and water, which means traveling around the map is much easier. So same thing with the camera. The reason why I like a change like this, where it would be locked like that and locked like this, is because of the head tracking, which I made sure to tell you guys about earlier on. So hopefully, as you've been listening to me waffling, you have been watching where my head has been going. Now, as you see, if I see the Carno facing here, and I'm a raptor coming up from here, I can see the Carno's head this way, and I could run in and get a bite, and the Carno would hear me running in, and he'd have to turn and then do this. But as you can see, if I do this, I turn like this, My Carno's head is still facing to the left, but I can see the raptor who'll be coming in from the perfect blind spot. But the camera's locked here, I cannot. I don't mind it a system like that, because it means that head tracking now becomes something that you can do. I think that's cool. That'll be a cool system, right? The fact that we've heard that you can, I think Kissan was talking about in one of Dondi's streams, I think it may be Kissan, that it won't apply when you're running, I think is a bit silly. I think when you're running, that'd be the perfect time to do it. To me, you just have to stop and check while you're running, which isn't too hard. You just turn a little bit and you just see, you know? You know what I mean? Or you just go in like a small circle and you run back. I don't think it'll be the biggest thing ever, right? Furthermore, how will it affect ambushes? Well, it means, for example, we already have eating lock. I wish I killed an AI, but you guys know what I mean. You have eating lock, but you can't move your camera beyond like there, you know. And then I'm just pressing Z. No, not Z. V. In case you guys don't know, it changes the position of the camera. So if you ever wanted to like go a bit more to your left, a bit more to your right, it can be useful in some circumstances. We don't really need to go into that. With the camera lock there, a lot of people said, well, this is just going to make ambushes easier. And it did. And what some players would do is if you're in a group, one player eats facing this way, and the other player eats facing this way. And then just, if one player then starts running and does a full call, the other player knows, we're about to get hit. And then eating by yourself, you kind of just adjust where there are bushes there close to me. So I'm going to take the risk and just face the bush. So if something comes, I can stop eating and run. And something from behind me is out in the open field. So it's going to be easier for me to hear their footsteps, to be able to see where they're coming from once I hear them. Now we're going to get into the thing I don't like about this camera system, which obviously is the zoomed in. This is about as zoomed in as it will be. Here are the different angles on the Z, V even. I don't like this, right? Because yes, it would be easier to implement the camera lock there, right? Camera lock there, camera lock there. It would be way easier to implement that. But I think it still works like this, right? We can all agree on that. The reason why I don't like this mainly it's I'm trying to think. It's not just the usual arguments that we have. I have watched Jaguar's video about it recently, and he did mention it, which I'm glad, because a few people I don't think have really properly mentioned this. Just motion blur and just motion sickness, right? Just a really cool thing about Carno is the fact that you can do tap drifts like this. You know, you can do tap drifts. You can even fake a longer drift and then go right back into the tap drift, right? So you can fake going for the really long one. As you can see, this is probably quite disorientating for the camera. Now, if you imagine another player running around, it's going to be even down bloody worse. And this is about where it is on the dinosaur. Sometimes, in some of the pictures, it looks like it's here. Which if you now do a visual tap drift, as you can see when I'm running, it's moving the camera a little bit further away. But I just feel a bit motion sicky from this, especially here. Like, it's actually kind of hurting my eyes, but, you know, just, like, yes, I will agree with Dondi. It is a completely different experience, which you did say. I do agree. It is an interesting experience. I won't lie. It is interesting. However, I feel that the positives that a camera view zoomed in like this, which of course is more immersion with your dinosaur, is one. It makes certain situations a little bit more intense. It would make action feel way more intense because you're right up in the action, right? So let's not lie. There are some positives. However, I feel like those positives are completely outweighed by the negative. And the main one is motion blur. I don't care if I feel like I'm in the action. Like, oh my gosh, I am my Carnotaurus fighting a Tenno or a Dibble, trying to drift around it, and I, do a like little slide bait, or maybe it messes up and I do this, and I run in and I do that, and I turn around and I go, then maybe like it tries to run a little bit, so I do some like little like tap. You supposed to do really quick tap, there you go. Really, and then I go in for a charge and I go out and I get a bite and I'm like, oh, it's so sick. As you can see, that's just it's jarring. It's too zoomed in. It just doesn't feel nice to me. We then of course have the argument of skins. Like, I quite like to look at my skin. Not only my skin, I would quite like to see the animation, right? The devs have made quite a lot of really nice animations for quite a lot of the dinosaurs. I really like Tenno's animations, especially when it's walking. I really like Raptor Z Walk, for example. I think it's really pretty. I really like Kano Sniff. I zoom in with Kano Sniff. That just feels weird. Never mind the fact that this somehow, despite the fact that I have pretty high settings on this game, that just looks weird and just motion. That's just awful, right? Like when I was reading the devlog and I saw Maya's animations and its slide, I was like, oh, that's a really pretty animation. I would love to see my Maya do. But wait, no, I won't be able to see my Maya do that because what I will see is this, just this whole slide like that. Just it's just and obviously Dondi made a fair, I would say it is a fair criticism, right? And obviously I don't want to be accused of just being a dev bootlicker by people who just hate the devs and hate the game, but just won't admit that they hate the game. And I also don't want to be, how'd you say, the opposite of just someone who hates the devs. All of your criticism is bad, which some of the devs seem to think that I am that person, but that's not the point. But the point is that with the fuck was I just talking about that? Right, Dondi's thing with it seems to be that players are looking at the game and they have nothing to do besides look at their JPEG dinosaur. Okay. Okay, fair enough. I will admit there is quite a bit of that in the game, and you guys have probably seen it. In which you will have an area like this or Northeast Plains, and you will have a bunch of stegos or like a mixed pack. You know, it would be a bunch of stegos mixed packing with a bunch of dinos, and the Tanos and the packies come, and they all just sit down like this, and they just sit and chill, and they're not doing anything. The one time I've recently played Path of Titans, that's what it was in that big crater lake. Just a bunch of different dinosaurs, just not doing anything, just sitting down, looking around. Wow, very nice. Look at my dinosaur JPEG model, right? That's a fair criticism of them. Me, however, walking around the map and being like, damn, that's a nice dinosaur animation. I quite like this. You know, especially Kano Sniff. Sometimes I'll walk around the map whenever I play Kano and just sniff as I'm walking. Because bro just looks happy. He just looks happy to be here. You know? Yes, look, sniffing. Yes, yeah. Okay? Like, I just, you know what I mean? I just feel like I was on Dondi's side with the change of the stamina system, and then it's the tweaking of the stamina system. I wasn't really for that with the change from 75% to 60, but I did understand why it was a bit jarring for certain playables to be locked at 75, which is why I wished instead they would have done it so that different dinosaurs had different thresholds, which they have said that they will be looking at. Fair enough. That is fair enough. You know? And I was on his side when people were like, oh, but the stamina system is going to kill the game because I'm going to have to change the way that I walk. Just let me get down to 0% stamina and then walk around. The strange irony of certain Twitch streamers who will not be named and certain personalities in this game who love to call people Timmies and shitters and, oh, these bad players, haha, just get good at the game, right? These players who store the stamina system and then started crying about it. And then Dante called them a bunch of shitters and people need to get good at the game. And I am telling you for a fact, these people have not let that go. They still talk about it. Dante said the mean thing to me. He called me a shitter. Meanwhile, they have a Discord where their boss is called Timmy and they have things of just like little shitters. You know, like I just feel like it's just not very nice. Right? I was on Dante's side with stuff like that. However, just with the camera, I can't find a good reason to keep it. And some people have said stuff like ambushes. I think ambushes work perfectly fine at the moment. They really do. If you want to know what's actually holding back ambushes, I will show you what is holding back ambushes. And it is something that I've mentioned before. I will show you what is actually holding the ambush back. It is this. I'm a Kano in the bush. I see my target. Let's say he's by the mud pool, right? Right. Now, what happened? I exited my bush and I made a loud ass noise, right? And my footsteps are really fucking loud. In fact, when we were doing the initial testing with Kano's new charge with Tenno, Jace very, very rightly said that about 20 meters away from the Tenno, he can hear the Kano perfectly clear, running towards him. And he could hear the, noise. What you've done is that you've created an ambush dinosaur that makes you know when it's going in for the ambush. Imagine a world where Dino lunge, before it does the lunge, it does a noise underneath the water. It goes like underneath the water, and then it lunges at you. And then the devs go, oh man, maybe we should make it so that when you're drinking, we have a drinking finish animation that you're forced to be locked into, so you can't just stop drinking and then just immediately pull out, right? So it's like, oh, you're drinking here right now. I can just go and just dip, right? Let's say, for example, it was like this instead. I'm drinking, and the drinking thing stops, and then I can move, right? They go, oh, that's gonna solve the problem. Now Dinosuchus can ambush. No. It's because it makes a really, really loud noise. Obviously, that isn't how Dino's lunge works, but Kano's does. Raptor's pounce as well. Makes the big old noise as you're running out of it, which isn't as bad because you're normally pouncing from close range. But the reason why you're pouncing from close range is because even if I, the Kano, right, am here from the bush and the raptor comes out, if it has to pounce from inside of the bush, let's say for example, they took my idea where you need to land raptor pounces from further away to latch on. And if you pounce too close, you do the kick and then you kick off, and it lands you just outside of the actual pounce range. So the raptor has to pounce from here onto me here. I hear him. Simple. I just ult bite him. Why? Because he made a loud ass fucking noise. It's just, I don't know. Because my whole thing with ambushes, I know this is a really weird rant, but as I did warn you at the start, I'm talking about points that not many people have brought up with the camera. So what I'm doing right now is I'm explaining to you why the camera doesn't solve the actual issue, right? It doesn't solve it. Because you make a loud ass noise, I can react to it. So we have dinosaurs, we have the carnivores right now, and we have the fact that the herbivore equivalent for every single carnivore in the game is stronger or better at survival than the carnivore. We have raptor. Its equivalent is Paki and Gali. Gali is better at surviving than a raptor, and Paki is stronger than a raptor, right? Of course, there is a raptor strategy to actually kind of cheese Paki, but we're fairly sure that it's a bug, and it has been sent off to do the best of my knowledge to be looked at by the devs, right? But in terms of just normal play, if this bug didn't exist, just a Paki can just decimate about 2 raptors by itself. You kind of need 2 raptors to confidently kill a Paki. I say confidently. That's not to say a solo raptor can't kill a Paki. There are some very, very cool raptor strats that Nick Boy, I don't know how to pronounce his name properly, another YouTuber who plays Raptor very, very well, may I add. He has a really, really cool Paki strategy. And when the Paki goes in for the ram, you jump at the correct time and you go over him. And then when you land, it's in the recovery animation and you can land a bite, which makes the Paki think twice about going in for the ram. Right? That's cool. That's a cool strategy. So obviously you can do it solo, but to do it confidently against any raptor, any Paki of any skill level, you'd probably need 2 raptors. Right? And then for Tenno, a solo Tenno decimates a solo Kano. You can kick the Kanos to get out of charge. You have your attacks do a shit ton of damage and barely cost that much stamina. In fact, they should probably raise the Tenno's stamina usage for its kicks up again. Right? It's got insane stamina. It's got an insanely fast trot. It's just a really good dinosaur. Tenno is stronger than a Kano. Then you have Stego, which if played right is basically immortal. Dino is not immortal, and I get it, because I'm kind of okay with the herbivores being more devastating in terms of time to apply effect, if that makes sense. So for the raptor versus the Paki, the raptor's effect is the bleed. It takes time for that bleed to really matter, but when it does matter, you're effectively on death's door, right? You're gonna bleed out. For the Paki though, it's instant. I fracture you. I don't mind that, ideally, right? I don't really mind it. Simply because of a thing called an ambush. the way I thought the game was going, right, in terms of realism, right, in terms of a hardcore experience, realism, learning to play the dinosaur, is that if you can use ambushes, you get the leg up on the herbivore. Because instead of, for example, Raptor, you needing to find an opportunity to pounce during the fights and maneuver around the Paki and then pounce it and get the right amount of like stamina usage off to deal enough bleed where if it chases you, it bleeds out, so that you have enough stamina also to then run away. Instead of that, you just ambush the Paki and then just get it down to that bleed level, dismount, and then run. And if the Paki tries chasing you, it dies. So now the Paki stays still if it's smart. The ambush closed the gap between you and that herbivore. I liked that. That was cool. I thought that that was a good thing for the game. However, all of the ambushes make themselves known when you go for them, except for, of course, Dino, right? It's just, I don't know. It's just the whole thing with Carlo just doing this just annoys me because you know what it's going to do. It is charging. It's just, it's, and making the camera smaller like this isn't going to change anything. Like, if a Tenno's camera angle is like this, it's not as if I'm not going to hear, the fucking... Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, there you go. It's not as if I'm not going to hear this noise. The camera being in does not change my ears and how they work. I'm still going to hear the ambush. So this change isn't going to change ambushes. It's not. It's going to cause you to have more blind spots during a fight. Granted, it will, right? But, and while that is good, it's not necessary. Because I thought already that the change where you couldn't look directly behind you and the camera would be locked, I'm assuming like this and then like this, that's a good enough change. It takes you that extra moment to really flick around. If they're running around you, you're constantly flicking around left to right, for you to properly focus in and see on what's going on. Say, for example, you're flicking really quickly, and then a raptor runs in on one side as you're getting into the habit of flicking. You then flick again to get like a second look. Go, oh, what was that? And then they go in because you've created an opportunity for an attack. I don't mind that. That's kind of cool. That's a really nice system. And the Raptors will know where the Kano is looking. Same thing for Kanos versus Tenno. Two Kanos versus the Tenno, right? If the Tenno's looking at one of the Kanos, you can do some fake ins, and try to get its head to turn so that the other Kano can then just run in and then get a bite and then leave. But just zooming in the camera, I don't know. It's just, it is annoying to me. It is. Because I don't really like shitting on the devs, right? Because I don't really think it's, I find the argument to be rather reductive, right? It's like, I have a complaint about the game and a balance, idea that isn't good. So I'm going to insult the devs so that they listen to me. I don't really think they're going to listen to you now, right? Because you know what I mean? But then again, you also have stuff like AAA companies where people are like, oh yeah, we can just shit on the AAA company and nobody really cares, right? Anyone can say, yeah, the new Kill the Justice League game was utter doo-doo cheeks and was a bad game. And people make YouTube videos about it and it gets like 1 million views and everyone agrees that, yeah, it was a shit fucking game. Yeah, honestly, it was shit. These are the people who brought us Batman, Arkham Knights, and now they've made this turd. Everyone agrees and they go, yeah, that's fair. And, the company at fucking Ubisoft or Activision or whoever the fuck made that game, doesn't go into their fucking Discord and be like, I am upset with the things that people are saying about me. Fuck the developers, am I right? No, that doesn't really happen. But obviously with indie projects, how do I explain? In indie projects, the veil between the developers and the community is a lot thinner because you don't have the backing of a large company, right? So it hits closer to home, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, there are certain things I really, really want to talk about with conversations that I've had, but I also know I should probably keep them to myself. So I'm not gonna mention it. But I don't know. It's just, I really just don't like this change. I can't see my skin. I get motion sickness running around. It doesn't actually solve the issues of ambush. What other issues does it not solve? Yes, they have mentioned, yeah, looking up. So your dinosaur becomes transparent and you look up, same thing like foliage, so you can look around. That's also another good change. That's 2 good ideas, that I have. And just the one core big idea that I just don't like. It's just, I don't know. And Jaguar made a very, very good point, which is that in a lot of games that are like melee focus, the camera is in third person because it allows you to survey everything, and it does actually make it easier to land your melee attacks. You know, and I agree, right? And here's the thing: you could then say, "Ah, but TurkishD.Lite, if you like the stamina system so much because it punished bad players and rewarded good players, wouldn't the camera system also punish bad players who can't aim right in the game?" True, you're absolutely right. And I may be hypocritical about that. But I did say at the beginning that I like changes, that when a good player and a good player meet each other, the change is in full effect. And when bad players meet each other, the change doesn't actually matter because they're playing badly, right? You know what I mean? Like, if both of them are just wasting their stamina, the fight is the exact same as it would have been before. They're both at zero stamina and they're now doing less damage to each other. The exact same fight. But a good player versus a bad player, you will then notice that change. The idea being is that I don't like changes that just make it so that bad players just can't play the game, right? Because how can I expect a player to learn and get better at the game when they play the game, they get motion sickness, they cannot aim at all, and they just feel like dog shit, right? I think that's a fair point to make. Like, I can live with that in terms of like games I play. So I play quite a lot of like strategy and real-time strategy games, where quite a lot of them are rather brutal, and you do just get messed over by RNG and certain placements, or you made a mistake earlier on and that mistake compounds as time goes on, and then eventually you reach the breaking point. When you look back, you realize the breaking point wasn't, you know, the random ambush or the generator going out. It was the thing you made earlier on where you chose, do I sack this mine and take 1,000 coal, or do I try to like reopen the mine and maybe get 10,000 gold in 10 turns, right? It's stuff like that. But it just doesn't work for this game. It just doesn't work. It needs to be accessible towards new players. It doesn't mean balanced for new players. It needs accessible for new players. This I don't think is accessible for new players. You're a new player playing Carno. You love Carno or Raptor, right? And you just look at it, just you're like, I don't even see what I'm properly aiming at. And there's a big cooldown towards my primary bite, right? There's something else I wanted to talk about, right? Is that sometimes the devs will see problems, which is good. I'm glad that they see those problems and they know that those problems need to be fixed. I don't know if OBS is going to pick up Chase's Discord message, but he just messaged me saying, "Yo, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm recording a video. Shut up." I'm yapping to the camera. Anyway, so the devs will like find problems, but sometimes they solve the problems in weird ways. Take Kano, for example. As I said before, I picked Kano to walk around with for a reason. Kano had the insta charge, an insta knockdown, and you'd just be knocked down and it would bite you, bang, bang, right? Cool stuff. So if you're a Tenno, you'd be hit by the Tenno. You can't see the visual for the fucking charge slide. I'm trying to get it to work without something to aim at. There you go. And then you get your 2 bites, this was before cooldown, and you'd run away. And you get the Tenno to like 40% health, right? That was a problem, because at any distance, I could knock down the Tenno, and the Tenno could not cancel my instant knockdown. This got changed, and Tenno was then given priority with the kick and tail slam over a Kano charge. Brilliant change. We've solved the issue for Tenno. But then they made it that you have to charge it from 50 meters away. Right, now you've lost me. Because you're just not going to hit that ambush unless the Tenno is just very, very bad. Or, for example, it's raining. I'll give you guys an example. Why can I not see the weather? Oh, there you go. Let's just say rain. Right, so we have rain. During the rain, you cannot hear the Kano's footsteps as well. You also cannot hear this as well. You can hear it from my perspective. Obviously, if you're, opponent, you won't be able to hear it as much. And that solves some of the issues. But I don't really want kind of that charge to be balanced around. If you do it in the rain, it works really, really well, because then what the fuck's the point of a Kano charge? Like, it seems a bit silly to me. It's like, there are problems, but they just fix them in weird ways. Dano's problem, right, is the big one that I was angry about with Dano. Dano's problem was not necessarily the Venom timer, right? Could it have been shortened for 5 minutes down to like 3 minutes? Maybe. I think it would have been fine with 5 minutes. What was the actual issue? The issue with Dino was that it bites you once or hits an alt bite against a Serrado and a Kano, right? Then it runs away and just spams hallucinations for the next 5 minutes and then you die. Right? Is the issue there the fact that it is 5 minutes? No. The actual issue that not many people really seem to realize was interactivity. Once the dino bites me, I don't see it again for the next 5 minutes. If the devs had taken an idea that me and Jace talked about in the video about how we would rebalance Dino, and you have 0 charges for hallucination once you hallucinate something, but when you land the bite that hallucinates them or gets you to be able to do hallucinations, you're given 1 charge, and every bite that you land on the target refreshes a charge. So effectively, let's say for example you can hold 3 charges. I would quite like an idea recently of you can stack as many charges as you like. Every bite that you do, you get an extra charge, right? And the charges just don't really refill back, you know? Or maybe they do refill back, but it's 1 charge every minute. So then you'd end up with like 5 charges, right? So you could play Dino without going back in. But if you send in a hallucination and you run in and bite, you can then send in another hallucination to run in and bite. Which means, guess what? If there was always 1 hallucination and 1 Dino, one of them is the real Dino. Which means I have a 50-50% chance of damaging the real Dino. Wow. We now have interactivity, even if the venom timer is 5 minutes. Because I have a chance of killing the Dino. Oh my goodness gracious me. You know? But it's just, I don't know. Especially as Dino was a nighttime hunter, in which the easiest way to counter a Dino at nighttime, legitimately, and the fact that nobody really seems to like mention this at all, is just doing this. Ta-da! I'm now Dino safe. Right? I'm literally safe from Dinos. Ironically enough, despite the fact that Dino probably works better in the forests, hiding in the forests against Dinos was almost kind of better for you, right? Because it was just, the foliage was so dense, and the Dinos want to be able to see things in night vision, so they're probably going to go to plains, where most players normally are. So if you just like book it into the forest once it gets dark, you make sure that you eat some like AI if you're a carnivore, or your last bit of plants as a herbivore. You drink up, and you just go sit, you know, close to the forest, or even just in the forest. That is what won't get you, right? But I know I'm getting really off topic. But the point is that the devs see issues in the game, but sometimes it feels like they don't properly understand the actual situation, right? They just take feedback from people who also don't know the actual situation and go, yeah, cool. We think that there's a problem. The community also thinks that there's a problem. Let's solve it. But the community's like, oh god, 5 minutes for Dino Venom is too long. Once it bites me, I just don't see it again for 5 minutes. And nobody thinks, it's the interactivity. You know, because now what we have is the Dino Venom lasts for 1 minute, and you bite it once every minute to keep the venom going. In a group of 4 dinos, 1 dino needs to bite you every 4 minutes. You're not going to kill that dino. Never. You haven't actually changed the fight at all. Not really. Just, I don't know. That's just most of it. This video is kind of dragging on. I think I've made most of my points. The point is, this is not as accessible for new players, causes motion blur, doesn't let me see my skin, doesn't let me see animations. It's pretty bad for melee focused combat. The camera lock idea going 180 is a pretty good idea. I quite like it. The camera zoom in is not going to solve ambushes. It's the actual ambushes themselves that need a change. What else? And while the devs have correctly noticed that there are issues with the game, I think they're going about it the wrong way, right? So I would just say to them is just, while the community may be mad about your idea, just, I don't know, the majority of the community doesn't actually hate you. And I definitely don't hate the devs. No, I'd actually quite like to gain more rapport with the devs, so I could work more with them, maybe. But yeah, it's just, understand that, especially in this video, I've made sure to say, don't hate on the devs. I've made sure to say, you know, don't just start a mob. And I've even made sure to say why certain changes are probably being made and given arguments and examples of why it would be good. But I just feel like it needs a push in a different direction to see what the actual issue is. If, for example, you fix Carno Charge and you fix, Raptor's pounce noise and you fix certain things like that to make ambushes easier to land on the carnivore's side, so the carnivore now has more control over the ambush, and ambushes are still really, really weak, then you can then start looking into things like the camera. I think for now, just do those things, you know? But yeah, that's all I have to say. But have a good one, lads. I don't know. It's kind of just a tired video to make. So